We had been able to kind of control her seizures up until about 4. And then at 4, she started having the drop seizures, and that was when it kind of fell apart. It was a Saturday afternoon. We had taken her to the museum, and she just started falling. So when we got home from the museum, I started putting in different search terms. Everything that kept coming up associated with atonic seizure and regression was Lennox-Gastaut. That was really when I was devastated when I saw that.
You know, kind of scares you a little bit, like, you know, your child has this rare condition or disease.
So the diagnosis of Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, LGS, is made upon 1, the seizure types, 2, the developmental level of the person, and thirdly, EEG characteristics.
James was diagnosed with LGS when he was about 2 years old. You know, the EEG said it all. I mean, it showed the pattern that the doctors are familiar with that are associated with LGS.
There are many different types of seizures that kids with Lennox-Gastaut syndrome can have, but the most common types are what we call drop attacks and atypical absences. Now, drop attacks combines atonic seizures and tonic seizures, and some people also combine massive myoclonic seizures.
I'll give you an example. A tonic seizure can look like and then be over.
The other seizure type is what we call atypical absence. It's in this seizure type that the child may have an unusual staring spell where they may stop their activity, be motionless, and just stare for 25 or 30 seconds. They may be sleepy afterwards, they may not, or they may come back to their usual level of activity. It's hard at times to diagnose a child with Lennox-Gastaut syndrome the first time you see them, just on initial presentation. And that's because they may not have all the seizure types that we think of as classic for kids with Lennox-Gastaut.
We have a general definition, and to say Lennox-Gastaut one thing is like saying the world is one thing, but we fully realize that there will be changes over life cycle and there will be individual differences.
When Heather was about 4.5 to 5 years old, her seizures were changing. She started having new seizure types. No matter what we did, medication wasn't controlling it. And at 5.5 is when she was diagnosed with LGS. I was relieved to know what was wrong with my child, because to see your child slip back, not make progress, to be put in special ed, and all of a sudden they can't write their name anymore, or they can't do the things that they could do yesterday, is devastating.
You know, I guess it's every parent's nightmare is that, you know, your child has a lifelong condition. The questions were, would we be able to treat this successfully?